What's going on, folks? It is GameDad7. Welcome to the channel and to the Ultimate Job Guide Part 2. We're going to be doing an in-depth look at each one of the unique jobs available in the game to the story characters that join the party. This will cover from the moment they join the party, including Ramza, who you obviously start with, to the end of the game. So this is not just endgame, chapter 4, you've done everything, final meta builds. This is going to carry you throughout the game. I'd also like to thank anybody who watched the part 1 of this Ultimate Job Guide series, which covers all 20 generic jobs in the game. If you have not, I'll link that in the description below. And just like the previous video, I'm going to go over some definitions here before we get started. So this way, when I start mentioning specific things, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're already familiar with all this definition stuff, go ahead and use the timestamps and skip to the start of the video. All right, so let's look at a character sheet. Here we have Ramza, and we can see his HP and his MP. These two are influenced by equipment that you have, your headgear, your chest piece, etc., as well as the character's job. Next is bravery and faith. Bravery counts towards damage equations for certain attacks, as well as is the trigger chance percentage for your equipped reaction ability. Now, faith is one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy Tactics. It's just kind of silly, but I think it's awesome. It's basically how much your character believes in magic. So if you believe in magic a lot and have high faith, and the person that you're targeting, whether it is healing magic, a buff, debuff, or damage, generally the higher the faith of the target, also increases either the percentage chance of it hitting or landing, if it's a buff or debuff, or the damage value or healing effect. So in essence, the higher faith of the user and the target, the better the chances that the hit will land if it's a buff or debuff, or the amount of damage or health that will be affected. For most damage equations, the inverse is also true. How little faith you have or how little you believe in the magic of the user as well as the target is how little chance you have of a buff or debuff sticking to that target, as well as the amount of damage or restoration. There's a couple different ways that bravery and faith can be increased or decreased, but we'll talk about that later. Next is your movement, and this is a combination of the unit's base movement range, including their job, equipment, or any ability bonuses. So basically, the higher the number, the further a unit can move. Next is your jump, which is a combination of your unit's base jump ability based on their job, equipment, or any ability bonuses. This attribute governs how many tiles the unit can jump horizontally, as well as how far up or down a slope the unit can jump. So with all the verticality in the maps, this helps you get up to those hard to reach places and is really helpful for units that have ranged attacks or spellcasters. Now, movement and jump do not have any sort of growth with them. When you change jobs, that job has a specific movement and jump score, which then any combinations of your equipment or abilities can change. The next one, your speed, determines how fast you are in combat, how often your turn comes by. That does take into account your growth mechanics. So certain jobs have variance in speed, so over time you will be faster, as well as jobs having different base speeds. This can also be affected by equipment or any other abilities. The same rules apply to your physical attack and magical attack as speed. All three of these are used in several different damage equations as well, and we're going to get more into depth into that. Lastly is your passive evasion, and this depends on what job you are. It does not change over time, and as you change jobs, this will change as well. All the stats to the right of these are going to be your equipment stats. So specifically what you're equipping on you, they have their own stats like weapon power, for example, which is used for damage calculations. The last two things I want to define are base and growth stats. Base means you have changed to this job, and therefore your stats immediately upon changing are affected. For example, I'm a Squire, I change to a Black Mage, my magic attack and others are going to change to make sure I'm a competent mage. Growth are the stats over time that are affected by levels that you gain in that job. So for example, the ninja job has great speed growth. So let's say I've been a ninja for the past 10 levels. I'm then going to change to a monk. I'm going to be faster as a monk, having been a ninja the last 10 levels, than a monk who has been a monk for the past 10 levels. Now, there are also jobs that have lower than average growth stats for certain things. The good news is you don't have to remember any of this. I've made it really simple to understand by just assigning a letter grade to the job's constant and growth stats. I appreciate the feedback from the Ultimate Job Guide Part 1, and I did a little bit more in-depth research and came across this Google Sheet. If you know the author of this sheet, please shout them out in the comments, but I took the multipliers that were in there and translated them into my own letter grades, as you can see here. And I know that was a lot to go over before we've even discussed one single job, so I appreciate you sticking with me this far. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with definitions so there's no confusion. With that all being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Ramza Beowulf Squire, Chapter 1. I say Chapter 1 because Ramza's Squire class is unique. It's one of the only jobs that evolves throughout the game. So not only does his sprite change, his equipment, abilities, and base and growth change over time. Now he's pretty above average in most abilities here. Something I do want to highlight is that magic growth of a B. For my grading scale, C is average, and there are only 5 jobs in the entire game whose magic attack grows over time above the average, which is a C. Ramza's Chapter 1 Squire outclasses the normal Squire in every metric other than speed, which they are both the same. But Ramza really is an open book. They set him up this way so you can push him towards either spellcasting or being a physical attacker. This job requires 1,870 JP to master, and it features most of what the Squire abilities would have, except Ramza's Squire branches out into being one of the better support classes in the game. He comes with Chant, which restores 40% of the target's max HP, and it damages the caster 20% of their max HP. So basically half of whatever you give back to the other person, your Ramza is going to take in damage. Tailwind is one of the best support abilities in the game. It has a range of 3, it's a guaranteed hit, and it provides a speed +1 to the target. Now early in Chapter 1, depending on how much of a sicko you are, you may not have a lot of jobs available to you, but there are a lot that use speed as part of their damage calculation or success calculation. Archers that use bows, characters that use knives, Dragoon's jump ability, and the success percentage of stealing for thieves. Ninja swords and throwing also rely on speed. And jobs like the Arithmetician, which have horrible speed, can really be helped by Tailwind. Not to mention just general manipulation of the combat timeline, which is important in any tactical game. You're going to be using Focus a lot too, which raises your physical attack by 1 each time you use it, and it's super easy to gain JP that way. Now to cover equipment, this job uses knives, which damage equation takes speed into account, swords, which is just your physical attack times the weapon power of the sword, and flails, which are a little wonky. They choose a random number between 1 and your physical attack times the weapon power. For equipment, you have hats, hair adornments, cloth, and unique to Ramza Squire, robes. Now, next, I would usually cover items of note, but in Chapter 1, you're so limited with what story missions are available and they're not being poaching. So what I'll do is I'll take you through Chapter 1, give you some hints about some builds, and then some items you can get during Chapter 1 to help. After you learn all of your metal abilities, I'm going to recommend you move into Monk. The differences in your growth stats are marginal, and your base stats has slightly higher physical attack, HP, and speed. The job pairs really well with your metal abilities. With Focus, you can raise your physical attack and really increase the amount of damage you do with your attacks. All of the monk abilities are based off of your physical attack and give great variety. You have Chakra, which allows you to heal based off your physical attack. It's an area effect. Elevation is key though. They have to be pretty similar to the same elevation that you're on. This also is one of the only ways early in the game to restore MP, which will greatly help your magic users this early in the game. Aura Blast is also an excellent ranged attack. It's an instant cast based off your physical attack and does great damage. Now, monks have the innate ability Brawler, which adds your bravery into the damage calculation. An easy way early in the game to make sure you increase your bravery is on the third battle of the game, Mandalia Plains. You have a dialogue option that you can choose. Make sure you select the first one. Our duty is to defeat the brigade. This will give you 10 bravery points added to each unit during the battle, and then +2 bravery points permanently added to each unit in the battle. Now, progressing further into Chapter 1, once you get to Battle 7, which is Brigand's Den, Meliadoul will have some nice equipment that you can steal early. You do have to level up a Thief to make sure you can get this high, but the good news is you'll have Tailwind that you can cast on the Thief to help increase your chances of stealing. And then the very next battle, which is battle number 8, at the Lanalian Plains, she will be there again. You can also steal her equipment there and use the same strategy, boosting the speed of your Thief with Tailwind. And then screw it, let's make it a family affair. The very next battle, battle 9, we can steal from her brother Wiegraf, who has a pretty nice weapon that we can take. Also, shout out to Boco in this battle. This is the first time we see him. Now, if you've stolen all these things, obviously as a monk, you're not going to wear them. So you can go back towards being a knight if you'd like to finish out Chapter 1 using this stronger equipment, maybe testing out some rend abilities, which really help you towards stealing, as well as enticing other characters to join you. With all those levels in monk, I actually dipped into Geomancer just so that way I could get attack boost, as you can see there. And that pretty much wraps up Chapter 1 of Ramza, so we'll go ahead and make our way into the next. Ramza Beowulf Squire, Chapter 2. Unlocked after Battle 10, new sprite, same old stat blocks. Nothing has changed here, but now for 200 JP you can learn Steel, which is a guaranteed +5 bravery to a target. This is huge, so much better than the Orator's ability to raise bravery, as this is guaranteed. Raising bravery is huge for jobs like the monk, anyone who uses a katana, or knight swords for raising their damage ratio, but most importantly, it's huge for triggering reaction abilities, which is important for everyone. Only your designated treasure hunter character should have low bravery. For weapons available, it's the same as Chapter 1, knives that incorporate speed, sword, which is your physical attack times weapon power, and then flails once again, which includes that randomness we talked about. Here's where we see a big change with Chapter 2 Ramza. We get helmets, hats, hair adornments, armor, cloths, robes, and shield. Now we have armor to crank up our max HP, and we also have shields to help avoid damage. The new equipment options allow for greater versatility starting off of Chapter 2. My recommendation is to shift away from the monk. Maybe you dipped into Geomancer to get the attack boost support skill, and make your way towards ninja to learn dual wield. There are some difficult battles coming up, some here in Chapter 2, but mostly in Chapter 3, but working towards dual wield as a ninja is going to help you optimize your damage output for those specific hard battles, and then we can get a little bit more fun and versatile with the builds. A couple pointers here towards the beginning of Chapter 2 and Battle 12 in the Aragway Woods. You have a dialogue choice here to make as Ramza about the shaving the chocobo Boco. Make sure you select Perhaps We Could Use It. This gives you 10 bravery points added to each unit during the battle, and then 2 bravery points permanently added to each unit in the battle. Now, the battle directly after this is Zerskili Falls. Make sure that you go in and remove Gafgarian's equipment before you start this battle. He's got some pretty good stuff here that you can use on Ramza Squire. That Power Glove you can use on lots of different abilities, especially if you switch him back into a monk. That will really help you by boosting your physical attack. Now, the very next battle, the castled city of Zalland, where you first meet Mustadio, which is Battle 14, is another opportunity to make a dialogue choice to have a positive impact to your bravery. If you choose We Cannot Stand By and Watch, you get 10 bravery points added to each unit during the battle, and an additional 2 bravery points permanently added to each unit. If you missed my Part 1 guide, where I go over the Orator class and the benefits of increasing bravery and how to do it, essentially every 4 points of bravery you increase in battle, you get to keep one of those afterwards as a permanent. So if you raise someone's bravery by 8 points, you then keep 2 at the end of battle. So basically, doing these dialogue choices is the equivalent of spending 2 turns per unit with an Orator increasing their bravery. So at this point, you probably already have your dual wield from Ninja, and then you can use it back on the Monk, which gives you amazing damage output, especially if you've been bumping up your bravery. As we talked about, this will really increase the amount of damage Ramza does. Staying on the topic of Monk and thinking about the future, something really important here is Battle 16, the Chigiliath Fenlands. There is a 20% chance that a pig will spawn in this story battle. It is your only chance to see one until Chapter 4. This gives you a great head start for poaching that happens in Chapter 3. The monk cannot wear hats or helmets, but they can wear hair adornments, and the pig and a level 3 pig called the wild boar both give poached hair adornments, which give you tons of resistance to status effects. So use an orator with entice or tame to get one in this battle. The last Chapter 2 story battle that I want to talk about that includes something of note is going to be battle number 19, Goo Goo Gaga Gallows. Make sure you steal Gaffy's blood sword. It doesn't have amazing weapon power at only 8, but what it does is it absorbs HP on attack. So if you've been following my advice so far, you probably have dual wield. You can switch back over to Squire, equip dual wield, and then make sure that you'll always regain health whenever you attack. This is super helpful for all the one-on-one battles that you're going to have in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. Before we end Chapter 2, I want to give a shout out to Dragoon Ramza. It's a really viable strategy. You put distance between you and the enemy you're attacking, so you help evade counter, which a lot of the bosses have this early in the game. Also, jump removes you from the battlefield. You can't get hit while you're not on the battlefield. If you're wondering why I haven't gone over any spellcaster builds for Ramza yet, quite simply put, the one-on-one battles towards the end of Chapter 2 and in Chapter 3, I feel like you're at a big disadvantage as a spellcaster, and I want you to have the best odds of success. Once we get into Chapter 3 and towards the end of it, I will branch off into what are some of my favorite Ramza builds that incorporate magic attack. Chapter 3 Ramza is pretty much the same. Oh, we gotta fix that. There we go. His Squire class still has the same base and growth stats. His abilities are even the same as well. Even the equipment for Chapter 3 Squire Ramza is the same as Chapter 2. He's pretty much identical to what he was. But what is different is a bunch of hard battles in Chapter 3, but also we now have poaching. So I'm going to teach you some of the best items to get for Ramza via poaching, which you can now do in Chapter 3, as well as some tips on how to survive the strongest encounters in Chapter 3, and then we'll move on to Chapter 4. If you're unfamiliar with the mechanics of poaching, I have an entire guide that I made based on that, which I'll put in the description. Hopefully in Chapter 2, you were able to get the pig at the swamp, so now you should have a hairband, and this will help obviously for Monk Ramza. By now, hopefully you have a Tier 3 wild boar of the pig family, and then you can get a ribbon, which is just an even better version of the hairband. You would honestly be fine with some sort of combination between Monk and Squire for the rest of Chapter 3. But I do want to explore the Dragoon Ramza because with poaching now, you have the ability to serve some crazy damage combinations. If you manage your monsters well, you can end up with the Holy Lance and the Whale Whisker. The Holy Lance has a weapon power of 14, which is well beyond anything else you'll have in Chapter 3, and has the ability to cast the spell Holy on chance. The Whale Whisker has an even greater weapon power of 17. You can get started on prepping for the Holy Lance as early as Chapter 1. All you need to do is encounter a Dragonkin and then bring it into your team by either taming or recruiting it. These are found in the Siege Wield and the Zekilus Desert and the Rohovum Windflats. You need the 3rd tier of the Dragonkin, which is called the Sekret. Then poach this, get the rare poach, and the Holy Lance is yours. For the Whale Whisker, you need to get a dragon, which, believe it or not, you can actually get a dragon as early as Chapter 1. It is a special battle. You need to approach the Linalian Plateau coming from the magic city of Garland. Keep doing that over and over again, and eventually you'll come across a green dragon in this location. Eventually you'll end up with the 3rd tier red dragon, which you poach for the rare poach of the Whale Whisker. These combined with attack up can cause Ramza to deal serious damage when using jump, and can make some of the one-on-one boss fights so much easier. Now, what a lot of people want to know is how to get through the end of Chapter 3, whether it's the 1v1 versus Wheatgraph or on the rooftops with Rapha and Elmdor. The easiest way to do this is you can do what I have here in the video, where I use a combination of dual wield with the blood sword, as I talked about earlier, to give yourself some health, as well as auto potion to give yourself some health. You could also do the same using Monk with Brawler to really maximize your damage output. But there is actually an even easier way to take care of Wiegraf anytime you fight him in Chapter 3. And the cheat code is this, the Chameleon Robe. You can purchase this from any robe vendor after the 23rd battle of the game, Lazalia Castle. This robe absorbs Holy. Wiegraf is a Holy Knight, similar to what you've seen with Delita and Agrias. But the thing is, Wiegraf's Holy Knight actually applies the holy damage to all of his Holy Knight abilities. If you're wearing a robe which absorbs holy damage, the AI will not target you with any of these abilities, and he will simply come up and strike you with his weapon, making the battles against him so much easier. Chapter 3 can be tough, but if you stick to what I've gone over so far, you'll be fine. For your support ability, I'd prioritize using dual wield, whether you're going to stick as a Squire or a monk. Make sure you increase that bravery score for Ramza, so that way you can have a high chance of using your reaction score, and also really increase the amount of damage you use with your fist attacks with Brawler. Auto potion is going to get you through a lot of rough battles too. The trick to that is to sell off all of your potions and high potions and make sure you only have stock of X potions, so this way you always heal with the X potion. Good luck, and we'll make our way to Chapter 4. What's this? They did it. They really did it. They named Ramza's Chapter 4 Squire Gallant Knight, just like his pappy. Honestly, I thought this was one of the coolest things the Ivalice Chronicles did. No, it's not the fanfic of Ramza learning the Fell Knight abilities from Gafgarian from his crystal or something as cool as that, but just having the Gallant Knight in the game is really cool in my opinion. And Chapter 4 comes with a lot more than just a name and sprite change. He has higher base MP as well as base magic attack. His base magic attack is actually the highest among all story-specific jobs, and his physical attack base also got a boost. So essentially all of his base went up. So if you had him as a Squire to end Chapter 3, you would actually notice an increase of his stats to start Chapter 4, but this just brings him a little bit on par with the other characters that are going to start joining you in Chapter 4. There's so many more options on how to build your Ramza in Chapter 4, and it's why it's one of my favorites. You're done with the really tough one-on-one fights with Ramza, so you don't have to ride the dual-wield monk as hard as you did in Chapters 2 and 3. You can really open it up and explore lots of new job paths with him. Gallant Knight also comes with 2 new abilities. Shout costs an additional 500 JP to learn. This raises the total to master this job to 2,570. And then you do have a question mark, which ends up being Ultima. This you have to have cast on you. First, I want to talk about Shout. Shout just might be one of the single best abilities in the entire game. This is what it does. It's self-targeting, automatic success. You get bravery plus 10, physical attack plus 1, magical attack plus 1, and speed plus 1. It is your ultimate buff ability. No matter what job you are, this is going to benefit you somehow. Ultima is a ranged multi-target magical attack that uses Ramza's magic attack plus his faith and the target's faith. The earliest you can learn Ultima is in Chapter 4 at battle number 42, Limbury Castle Gate. I've heard online people for some reason are saying you can learn it at the end of Chapter 3 on the rooftop, or that you used to be able to in the original PS1 version of the game. As far as I know, this has always been the original place for you to learn the spell. You need to have one of the assassins cast it and Ramza be hit by it. Basically, the trick to this is to equip Ramza with inventory that will allow him to resist a lot of the status effects that the assassins generally cast using their magics, which kind of force them to then use Ultima, which is just damage based. I made a guide with step-by-step instructions on how to guarantee Ramza gets hit by Ultima to start this battle, which I'll link in the description. Equipment also got updated. We have the knives, swords, and flails that we've discussed so far, but now you have knight swords. It's the same equation as the regular sword, but it adds in your bravery. And if you've been following the guide so far, you've been upping your bravery to help with your monk Ramza, as well as your trigger percentage for your reaction abilities, which pairs really nicely with the knight sword. No new armor options for the Knight Gallant, but that's because it already has everything. There is nothing new to add. Now we get to the fun part where we get to talk about some equipment of note to go after in Chapter 4, as well as some builds to work towards for Ramza. One thing I do want to point out though is I'm not going to really put any of the mid-light deep equipment in here, or any equipment that you steal or get during the end of the game. The reason being is I don't want every build to have Chaos Blade and Lordly Robes, and most of these items you get directly towards the end of the game and there's really not much to do with them. I want to give you examples that you can work towards and build towards at the start of Chapter 4 to help you finish the game with. Alright, one of my favorite builds is Geomancy Ramza. We want to prioritize equipment that's going to boost our magic attack, which the Rune Blade does, the Lambent Hat, the Wizard's Robe, and then Japa Mala is a great accessory that boosts elemental damage, which geomancy attacks are based on elemental damage. Now, I didn't go for the Aegis shield here, which would help. It's a shield that boosts magic attack. I went with the Escutcheon, and the reason being is with the Wizard's Robe, you're going to have lower HP and susceptible to being one-shotted, especially if the odd chance of your reaction doesn't pop. So this shield gives us an amazing chance to avoid taking damage. This shield is a one-of-a-kind. It's found through treasure hunting at the Noveska Temple battle, which is 53. I have a guide that I made walking you through this entire battle, getting all of the hidden treasure here and how to deal with the strong monsters that you face here. To access this battle, you need to make sure that you start the long side quest to get a bunch of the additional characters in this game. I'll put the description to the Noveska Temple battle as well as the side quest to start all these characters in the description as well. Now, as soon as Chapter 4 starts, immediately go to Mount Bervenia on the map. This was not accessible prior to Chapter 4, and now it is. Start a random battle, and you'll want to do like in the video here, go to the peak of the volcano, make sure you have Treasure Hunter equipped, and you have Germanus boots in your accessory slot to make sure you have high enough jump to get up there. The Materia Blade Plus, which is an all-new weapon to the Ivalice Chronicles, and is an enhanced version of the Materia Blade, and honestly, it is amazing. It's a sword with a weapon power of 16, which is extremely strong, but what it also does is give a magic attack plus 4, which is pretty insane. Obviously, this weapon is meant for Cloud to enhance the Materia Blade that he already comes with, and we'll cover Cloud later. But if you're not using the Materia Blade Plus on Cloud, or if you don't have him in your party for a battle, using it on Ramza with his Geomancer abilities or even Samurai abilities in the secondary slot would benefit greatly from the plus 4 that this gives in magic attack. Geomancy pairs extremely well with the growth and constants of the Gallant Knight. Geomancy itself are great. It's a ranged attack that's instant, targets multiple units, they are elemental so their potency can be enhanced by items, they don't trigger most reactions, and can be used even if you're silenced. All the Geomancy attacks come with a flat 19% chance to inflict a status effect as well. Nature's Wrath as a reaction is fantastic as it gives all those benefits and is great for ranged enemies attacking you from afar. And make sure to spend some time in the Black Mage job to pick up Magic Boost to equip as the support when you're using Geomancy. Now, if you had a lot of fun with Monk Ramza, you can stay the same and kind of do easy mode for Chapter 4. Just make sure you put on the Power Garb in your chest piece and the Bracer as your accessory, as both of these will drive up your physical attack, making your attacks even more potent. Now, a really nice combination. You can see here I'm still a monk, but I've changed my reaction to Mana Shield, which you learn from being a Time Mage, and my movement to Mana Font, which you learn from the Mystic job. The way this combination works is Mana Shield makes your MP be targeted instead of your HP, as long as you have at least 1 MP. When Mana Shield triggers, your MP, even if it goes below 0, will not impact your HP. For example, you have 2 MP, you get hit for 500, your MP gets reduced to 0, your HP is not touched. On the next attack, if you still have 0 MP, then your HP will be targeted. But if you move in between then, and Mana Font gives you at least +1 to your MP, you will always have a shield to protect you for at least 1 hit. Don't this hit make my people wanna... That's right, Dragoon Ramza is back and better than ever, now using the Javelin in his primary spot, which you can get in the Noveska Temple video that I referenced earlier. This is one of the absolute strongest weapons in the game with an attack power of 30. Charge that up with attack boost. Make sure you put on the Hermes boots to increase your speed, and use Shout liberally to increase your speed and physical attack, and you will be jumping all over the map doing insane damage. Now, the Gallant Knight can also be a pretty great spellcaster, and with equipment that focuses on magic attack, you can have summoning be a great secondary ability for Ramza. The summon Golem provides a temporary HP shield to everyone that it gets cast on that's based on the spellcaster's HP total, which as a Gallant Knight, Ramza's going to have much higher HP than a summoner would. Add in your ability to buff yourself with Shout, and Ramza casting summons can do great damage to multiple units at the same time. Two final items of interest that I want to add that are poaching only, and honestly, a number of jobs could use this, not just Ramza, is the Septime perfume. This is equipped like an accessory. It automatically gives you haste, and you start off the battle with invisible, but awesomely, it gives you +1 to your magic attack. The other is going to be the cloth armor rubber suit. This gives you a huge +150 to your HP and negates lightning. Both poaching actually come from the same monster. You want to start with a Hydra, which the earliest place you can get, once again, is Nelveska Temple. And in that same video guide that I made that shows you how to get the rare items there, it also makes sure that you know how to entice the Hydra to come to your team. Then you want the second tier Hydra, which is the Great Hydra. You'll then poach that. The common is the perfume, the rare is the rubber suit. Now, some honorable mention jobs for Ramza would be Samurai. I wouldn't have Ramza be primarily Samurai, but the secondary abilities can be really nice. They're based off of magic attack as well, so you can use it in conjunction with the Geomancer. The only reason why I don't for my Ramza is because I actually have several of the other story characters use samurai skills, and I don't like having a bunch of the same. That wraps up Ramza's chapter 1 through 4. Before we jump into the rest of the special jobs, I did want to take a quick break and say that you, as the viewer, if you've watched this long, you've unlocked the special job subscriber. And if you've already subscribed, you now have unlocked the new ability like this video. And if you keep watching, maybe you'll unlock share with a friend. I say all this corny stuff to remind you that, hey, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, especially if you're enjoying this, if you've been watching this long. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job, also helps let YouTube know, and we'll get right back into it. Up next, Mustadio Bonanza's Machinist. This job is shared by the enemy boss, Marach. Stats-wise, the only thing it really does decently is have a really nice base speed, and its evasion is higher than average. The job command Aim Shot specializes in either immobilizing or disabling enemy combatants, as well as taking care of undead. Otherwise, the reactive supports and movements mimic the Squire job. The Machinist only has one weapon, which is the gun. None of the unit's stats matter with the gun. It is simply the weapon power of the gun times the weapon power. Stronger the gun, stronger the damage. Pretty simple. The Machinist wears hats, hair adornments, cloth, and robes. Mustadio joins as a guest in Chapter 2 following Battle 14, the castled city of Gallant. He then permanently joins the party after Battle 17, which is Galg Lowtown. Whether you plan to use Mustadio or not, please make sure you accept him into your party. He is vital to recruiting all of the optional characters in the game. Mustadio's aim shot abilities, the success percentage chance of those being successful is going to be determined off of Mustadio's speed. I'd say in Chapter 4, Mustadio definitely gets surpassed by other units, but in Chapter 2 and 3, being able to cast Disable on an enemy unit instantly with no MP using Arm Shot is extremely helpful, whether you're trying to steal from this unit, entice them to join you, or simply just crowd control. Also, being able to seal undead, instantly removing an undead from the battlefield, basically casting stoned on them, is really helpful as well. Now, the abilities for aim shot can technically be applied to whatever is in your primary weapon. So if you change Mustadio to a monk and you want to apply arm shot with your fist, you can do that. Same with the sword if you want to change to a knight or what have you. But I mean, the man's key art has a gun in it. I mean, he stays strapped. So wherever I change Mustadio, he's going to have a gun. Because of this, I'm going to recommend as soon as you start Chapter 4 to go ahead and start the side quest line for Beowulf and Reis. The reason being is a few battles into that, you're going to have the battle called Gallant Culinary Slope. And there's going to be a chemist right about here. And he's going to have the Glacial Gun, which is an extremely powerful magic gun, which you're going to pretty much base all his builds off of using this magic gun and then the future ones later in Chapter 4. Something important is to make sure you need to raise Mustadio's faith. The reason being is the damage equation for magic guns is the same as regular guns, weapon power times weapon power, but it takes into account the user's faith and the target's faith, just like a spell would. So the higher Mustadio's faith, the more damage he'll do. Magic guns either cast the first, second, or third level spell, and it's random, and which one of those spells obviously determines how powerful the strike is. Now here's a damage-driven Mustadio build, keeping him as a machinist. You have your Glacial Gun, and then the Black Robe, which increases fire, ice, and lightning damage, is going to help increase the ice damage from the Glacial Gun. Magic Boost is also going to increase the magic damage from Glacial Gun. But remember, magic attack does not go into the equation for Glacial Gun, but for some reason or another, just trust me, magic boost does increase your damage from the gun. Now, aim does something really cool with guns. The damage equation for guns is normally weapon power times weapon power. Well, when you use the aim command, you take the weapon power, then you plus whatever aim you're using. So aim plus 4, it would be weapon power plus 4. Then you would times it by the base weapon power again. So aim pairs really nicely with guns and magic guns. Now, manipulating bravery and faith values in the game can take quite some time, especially if you're doing it to an entire army of units. I had Mustadio be my orator for Chapter 2 and 3, and most of his time was spent doing that in my battles. Now in Chapter 4, once you finish the Limbury Castle consecutive battles, you're going to try and trigger a rare battle, which will be full of chemists that will have the remainder of the elemental guns that you want to try and get. You're going to go to Zagardis Trade City, and then from there you're going to go towards Germanus Peak. You're going to do that over and over again until you can prompt a battle that is full of chemists that all have the magical guns. You can either steal or entice them to your team and then take the guns from there. Another fun build is to have Mustadio be a white mage or a time mage, and then have the aim shot abilities as your secondary. This gives Mustadio a little bit more utility with either casting the white magic or time magic, and then utilizes that higher faith that he's going to have to maximize his magic gun damage. Obviously, you would need equipped guns for this. The reason I recommend changing him is the Machinist has pretty poor MP and magic attack values. Honorable mention to Chemist Mustadio. I like to have the items on the Machinist as opposed to having him be an actual chemist. But the problem is then you don't have throw items, and I'd rather use magic boost to boost up the weapon damage of the magic gun than have the support throw items. I do feel like there was a really big missed opportunity with the Machinist to have some more innate abilities, such as throw item and treasure hunter. I feel like that would really make Machinist much more versatile further into the game, and I think it was just a missed opportunity. Up next, my personal favorite, Agrias Oak's Holy Knight. Delita and Weegraf share the same job, though a little different. They did my girl dirty with the base and growth average physical attack stats. Same with magical attack for her. All of her Holy Knight abilities use physical attack as the modifier. So again, average stats are just really sad to see. But there's some really cool tricks that you can use to make Agrias a beast. Her Holy Sword abilities are awesome. Each one causes a different status effect at a flat 24% chance. They're ranged, some of them are multi-target, and they have different degrees of varying verticality. The damage equations are based off physical attack and weapon power. The Holy Knight uses swords, which is physical attack times weapon power, and also uses knight swords, physical attack times weapon power, which also includes the bravery of the user. So if you're going to be using knight swords, make sure you increase the bravery for Agrias. The Holy Knight uses helmets, hair adornments, armor, and robes, and can equip shields. Another thing they kind of gimped her with is not giving her cloth, which removes the ability to use the power garb, which gives +2 physical attack. Agrias is one of the first characters you see in the game. She also is in the initial tutorial battle. She joins as a guest to start Chapter 2, and then returns again to join you permanently on Battle 18 Balaya Swale, where you need to protect her. Hallowed Bolt will be your go-to with Agrias for quite some time. Make your way towards Geomancer to learn attack boost, and then slowly but surely make your way towards Ninja, but this will be more important in Chapter 4. To prepare yourself for poaching in Chapter 2 and getting the earliest Knight Sword that you can, go to Grog Heights from the royal city of Lazalia in Chapter 2 and 3 and encounter a Dryad. You want to have this eventually produce a Tier 3 version called the Elder Dryad. You can use this to poach a Defender as soon as you start Chapter 3. Now put the best gear on her that you can all the way up until the end of Chapter 3. And what you want to be aiming for as you start Chapter 4 is a build like this. So you want to work towards this Geomancy type build here. Holy Sword is going to be increased by the attack boost support, which is in the Geomancy tree. And I talked about that Mana Shield, Mana Font trick earlier to help basically give you that second layer of HP, that extra shield of damage to take. Now you might be wondering, why the heck do I have a black robe on this Geomancer, and why am I using Geomancer instead of Holy Knight? Well, the trick is, whatever equipped weapon you have, if it has an elemental type to it, that element will be applied when distributing your damage from the Holy Sword abilities. So the black robe will increase the ice damage that you do from the ice brand being applied to your Holy Sword techniques. A really cool trick from this is that if you use the ice shield on one of your units, and that unit is then damaged by her Holy Sword techniques while using this ice brand, they will in fact get healed instead of damaged, making Agrias suddenly a great healing unit. Okay, so that Chapter 4 Noveska Temple battle that I keep referencing, I really hope you followed the guide up to this point and you were able to entice one on your team, because we're going to need to get the rare poach from one of these next, which is the Scorpion Tail, and it has a weapon power of 23. Now I know we've talked about flails, the damage equation is very wonky, it's random, and why the heck am I talking about flails with a Holy Knight? We need to be able to cast those Holy Knight abilities, right? Enter Ninja Agrias. Now I know you're looking at this and you're like, what the heck is this build? So there's a trick to the game. Even though you have the Scorpion Tail in your primary hand, as long as you have a sword equipped in your secondary hand, which we have because of the support abilities equipped swords, the number used to calculate the damage in the Holy Sword ability is going to be the primary weapon, which is the Scorpion Tail. So until you get the crazy late game Knight Swords, this is going to be your best bet to maximizing damage with her early in Chapter 4. Now we'll make her a little squishy because we're going to also put on the equipment that's going to maximize her physical attack to really boost that damage, such as the headband, power garb, and bracers. Now I wouldn't have this auto potion equipped here that you see. I would do the Mana Shield and Mana Font technique simply to protect that low HP total she's going to have. And a more flavor fun build would be kind of like a paladin type build for her. Throw on the Excalibur to give her the holy boost, so that way you can use your white magic and cast holy, and then put on some equipment that'll increase her magic attack like the wizard's robe and the diamond bracelet, while also making sure you have that attack boost on. If you try to use Agrias as is, just keeping her as a holy knight, putting the strongest sword or Knight Sword that you have available at the time on her, she's gonna lag behind, especially a lot of the other characters that you get in Chapter 4. But if you use some of these techniques here to trick the system a little bit and really maximize her damage output, she ends up being one of your better characters in the game and is one of my favorites. Up next, Rapha Galthina's Skyseer. Stats wise, she's pretty unremarkable other than that base speed of an A, which is really nice. Her Sky Mantra abilities are very unique. Basically, the way it works is you cast the ability from 1 to 10 times on one of the tiles within the effect area. The tile that is selected randomly each time. You could hit one tile once, or you could hit the same tile 10 times, or any random number in between with all of the tiles that are selected. The damage calculation is based on magic attack, and there is small incremental differences between them. Otherwise, it looks like the Squire job. Skyseer uses staves and poles, both of which have the same damage equation of using magic attack, and that actually is pretty well optimized with the Skyseer job, being that all of the abilities are based on magic attack. Unfortunately, there are not any poles that have any passive magic attack bonuses, so we'll have to stick with staves. For equipment, we have hats, hair adornment, clothes, and robes. Rapha joins the party as a guest in Battle 28, the walled city of Yardro, hangs around for a bit, then leaves, and then you can recruit her to the party as a permanent member at the end of chapter 3. So right as chapter 4 starts, that's when you can have her. Most of the items we're going to use on Rapha, you can easily buy from the shop, so nothing too much to hunt down for her. I do recommend the Septime perfume that we talked about earlier, that you need to capture a tier 1 Hydra to eventually end up with a tier 2 Great Hydra and get the common Poach. This helps give haste and also a +1 to magic, which is really helpful. Now she's decent enough with pole attacks. They operate just like a pole arm, so it gives you a little bit of distance, and since it's based off her magic attack, it can be pretty strong, but I feel like it's a waste of time to use her like that. She's got to have one of the most frustrating, I'd say, abilities. It could be crazy powerful. You can also spend an entire turn in a charge time not doing any damage to what you've targeted, as you see here. So don't ever use Rapha as that I gotta kill this target on this turn kind of thing. Otherwise, you may end up with a big mistake and losing a unit. It truly is random, so you could end up targeting 4 enemies across 4 squares and killing all of them with those 10 strikes, or you could end up targeting none. Obviously, the more number of units that you target with the attack increases the chances of you hitting them. Another technique I like to do is if you target tiles that are on the edge of the map, you take the 4 target area and turn it into 3. That helps spread the probability amongst those 3 tiles as opposed to 4, but really she's a game of chance. I like to pair her secondary slot with a supportive type magic like time magic or white magic. This way she has a way to support teammates and has something to do on turns that she doesn't attack. You can see we're focusing on equipment that's going to raise her magic attack. Also, Japa Mala is really helpful for her as her Sky Mantra abilities. A lot of them are elementally charged, so you can help increase the damage that you do. Magic boosts will help, so dip into the Black Mage to make sure you get that. And a lot of times people use Rapha as a treasure hunter. She comes to the party with very low bravery. The lower your bravery, the better the odds of you getting the rare item that is from the treasure hunter ability. So if you ever wanted a magical embodiment of a flail or an axe in this game using the randomness, then this character is definitely for you. The Skyseer can be a lot of fun and do a lot of damage and keep you on your toes, definitely, for a lot of fights. Up next, Marach Galthina's Netherseer. His stats are just a little bit better than his sisters, but not by much. The speed of Rapha helps out a lot. So his Nether Mantra abilities work very similar to Rapha's. They're set up the exact same way, with magic attack being the primary, but the lower Marach's faith and the target's faith, the better the damage, which is the only thing like that in the game. Now, because we want his faith to be low, that kind of changes things on how we want to make some builds for him. It makes it a little interesting. Same weapons as his sister with the staff and the pole, using magic attack as the primary for the damage equation. And we've got hats, hair adornments, cloth, and robes. We want to, again, focus on magic attack. Marach joins you at the very end of chapter 3. As soon as chapter 4 begins, he is then a recruitable member. No real equipment of note to go over or chase for him. Most of the stuff you can get directly from the shop. Marach is basically just like Rapha. You have to be okay with the randomness of his attacks, except the weird thing about him is you want low faith. So that takes away a lot of secondary opportunities for magics that use faith, like time magic or white magic, for example. So a good alternative I found for him is Bard skills. They don't use faith and they allow him to apply some buffs to the team as well as himself, where you could increase magic attack, and it also lets him use Magic Surge, where it increases his magic attack when he is attacked. Now you could do something like Geomancy or Samurai skills as a secondary, but I feel like I want his Nether magic to be the main output of damage for him if I'm going to use that. Otherwise, I would just use a different character with Geomancy or Samurai. And to manipulate his own faith, you would use Orator skills, and if you wanted to manipulate the faith of another unit, you could use a Mystic to cast Atheist on the target. I know in the old game, Faith and Atheist were actually kind of bugged with Nether Mantra, but I haven't seen any reports of that with the Ivalice Chronicles. As long as you're okay with the randomness, you can make Marach work just like Rapha and have him be a contributing member of the team. Up next is Beowulf Cadmus's Templar job. And whew, look at those base and growth stats. I mean, this is the best job we have seen so far in this video. His stat blocks are perfectly optimized for what we want to do with his job. We don't have to tool around with a bunch of stuff. He comes already prepared in a neat package. Aside from all that, he truly is one of my favorites, him and Agrias. One of my favorite ability sheets in the game. You've got almost every debuff that you could want available on here. They're instant casts. They do cost MP, but they have such a high success rate because it's based on his magic attack, and he has great stat, constant, and growth as long as we're going to boost up his equipment to really maximize his magic attack as well. Beowulf is one of the best crowd control units in the entire game. Whether you're trying to steal from somebody, entice them to join your team, simply want to just crowd control and remove them from combat, he has the ability to do it all at an exceedingly high rate of success. He can use knives, swords, and knight swords. But I'm gonna be real with you, there's only 2 swords that we're gonna use for the entire game for him. He's got almost everything available to him equipment-wise. He's got helmets, hair adornments, armor, clothes, and robes. Now, there are some hats that he would benefit from to give him additional magic attack, but like I said, he's so well optimized with his stats, it really doesn't even matter. But he can also use shields. Beowulf is able to join you as a guest as soon as you start Chapter 4. He kicks off a very long side quest that allows you to recruit multiple characters to your game. You have a series of sequential battles looking for his love, Reis, who we'll talk about later. I made a guide on this whole entire side quest line in Beowulf, which I'll link in the description of this video to make sure you don't miss it, because again, he is one of the best characters in my opinion to have in your party. His abilities serve so many purposes. So he's got the great stat blocks that help make sure that his abilities land because they're based on success percentage for your magic attack. He can cast Break, which essentially is inflicting stone on an enemy unit and just remove them completely from the battle as long as they are not resistant. The great thing is, even if they are resistant, you can scroll through the numerous number of debuffs that he has to find one that's going to fit the opportunity that you're looking for. Very rarely will you spend a turn just attacking as Beowulf, as you can inflict and manipulate the enemies in so many different ways with all these different debuffs that take place instantly and very rarely miss. His Drain attack deals 25% of the enemy's max HP and damage to heal back. This is absolutely killer for any Lucavi boss fights. My favorite synergy build for him is to have Samurai skills in the secondary slot, Nature's Wrath as the reaction, with support being Magic Boost. All of these play into each other using his high magic attack, which we are really optimizing with the equipment spread that we have equipped on him. Almost all of these are giving him some sort of bonus towards his magic attack. His samurai abilities make him extremely versatile. All of a sudden he becomes a team buffer as opposed to just an enemy debuffer. He also then becomes a team healer as well. Samurai gives great local area of effect spells essentially, and there are a lot of really great supportive ones which he can take advantage of by giving high health returns because of his high magic attack. He can also then deal local area damage in an area of effect with great success as well. Now let's say you already have someone being a samurai or you want to focus on increasing stats as opposed to adding buffs. You can use Bard Song to raise your allies' speed, magic attack, physical attack, and even put on random buffs to your teammates as well. Beowulf is a must-have for any boss fights, endgame content like Midlight's Deep. He makes tough enemies easy by exploiting a weakness and crowd controlling them effortlessly. Up next, Reis Duelar's Dragonkin. Look at that heavenly stat block. Oh wait, let's fix this. Honestly, I think pound for pound, the best stat blocks in the game. I mean, look at these incredible base and growth numbers here. She is by far the best magic wielder in the entire game, but also has amazing physical attack too. She won't be using much of that physical attack though, because her breath attacks are all magic based, and then any of the other support abilities that she has, she's basically like the Ramza version of a dragon whisperer. She can really boost the abilities of dragons as well as instantly turn them to your team without even a percentage chance of failure. The Dragonkin's got some really cool innate abilities. So these would be support abilities that you would normally have to equip that she automatically has built into this job. Beast Tongue, which allows her to use Orator or any sort of speech abilities on enemy beasts. Beast Master, with when you're in a single space of Reis, allows you to unlock a new special type of attack that you can do. Tame, which is basically when you bring a monster down to critical HP, which is like on their knees, they automatically join. And then Dual Wield, which is the ninja support ability we've talked about that allows you to equip 2 weapons. Something else really cool is the job has some unique equipment parameters. So for weapons, it's only bag, which operates similar to the flail and the axe, where it's a random number between 1 and your max physical attack, and then times the weapon power. It gets even more interesting here. For headgear, only hair adornments, body armor, nothing, and for accessories can only wear rings, armlets, and perfumes. These parameters combined with the innate abilities allows for some pretty cool customization here, and honestly I wish other jobs were as unique as this, where they had some rules placed in them that made them different. And that's what I like, is different because it allows me to think outside the box. You first meet Reis during the Beowulf side quest storyline. She is the purple holy dragon that Beowulf is searching for. At the end of that initial quest line for Beowulf, you recruit him as well as the purple dragon, Reis. Then at the conclusion of the Nelveska Temple side quest, which is part of the Cloud quest line, she then turns into her human form, Dragonkin. So being that Reis can't wear chest armor or headgear and only hair adornments, I'd refer back to chapter 2 Ramza early in the video that talks about how to get the hair adornments. The only gear we can really use to increase our magic attack would be the cat skin bag that gives a passive +1, and then to make sure that you get magic boost, the support ability that is in Black Mage. I like to use the Mana Shield and Mana Font combination on Reis because the dragon abilities, and for here I have Geomancy, neither cost MP, so you can just use that MP as an extra shield. But something reactive like Nature's Wrath would be nice, or even something more thematic like Dragonheart, which she should automatically come with. Japa Mala works really well with this build because all of your dragon breaths are elemental, and then so are your Geomancy abilities, so it helps boost both. Geomancy is nice to pair with this because it stems off of the high magic attack Reis is going to have, and basically it gives you a further ranged attack because your dragon attacks are going to be limited to 2 squares out, where the Geomancy spells go much further. So the strategy is if you're anywhere near the enemy, go ahead and use your dragon breaths, but if they're further away, then go ahead and use the Geomancy. So as I mentioned before, Reis is kind of like what Ramza is to other units, as she is to other dragons. So she has like the ultimate support abilities. She can cast what is essentially what Ramza does, Shout, on other dragons, except Dragon's Might gives Bravery +5, Physical Attack +2, Magic Attack +2, and Speed +2. She has like her own version of Chant, which essentially she uses on dragons to heal them and then take some of the damage herself. She's even better than Ramza though, because she can instantly recruit dragons with 100% success, no matter what their HP is. And even more amazing is she can manipulate the turn order by making it the dragon or Hydra's turn immediately following. See, this Mystic was going to cast Blizzard on my Great Hydra. Well, I moved the Great Hydra's turn up, so now it goes before the spell, and I'm just going to go over there and take the Mystic out, so this way I don't even get hit by the spell. Now here's another great combination. This is a 3rd level Hydra called a Tiamat. And as you can see here, here's his normal ability list. There's 3 of them. Well, if I move within 1 square of Reis, now I have an additional ability called Dark Whisper. And this is an absolutely amazing ability. It's a dark element ability that casts a dispel 1 to 6 times on one of the tiles within the area of effect. It's randomly selected each time. It works similar to Rapha and Marach's Skyseer and Netherseer abilities. It's much more powerful, and it also has a 4.5% chance of inflicting KO or sleep on each one of the hits. It's not as spread out over 5 tiles like Rapha and Marach's are, because the verticality of it is a lot less. So you can concentrate the squares that it goes over. So as you can see here, I'm going to specifically select these 2 squares. Now you use that dragon buff, and even Lucave will be taken out pretty quickly from this barrage of attacks. Also, my favorite part of this is this little mouth move in there every time he does the attack. Now, something else really cool you could try to do, because she has innate dual wield, you could pop Brawler on her. Now she's basically a double punch monk. So really pop up her bravery, and then she could be really deadly in close range, and then have her a little bit distance attack with the dragon, and then whatever else you want to pop on there, the geomancy, or even some support magic. Here you also get to see her innate tame ability as well. Dragonkin is super unique and makes Reis awesome. The fact that she starts as a dragon, then turns into Dragonkin, and then has these different kind of rules we have to navigate to make it work, but she's super, super powerful with her constant and growth stats. I normally don't play Arithmetician, but if you were to study that for her and make that your secondary as a Dragonkin, she would be pretty much unstoppable. I find that she's unfortunately undervalued, and a lot of people don't know actually how good she really is. Up next, whoops, wrong TG said. Cidolfus Orlando's Sword Saint. Look at that stat block. I'm going to teach you some tricks on how to make him even better, but it's like saying how to drive a Ferrari fast or something. Even if you had the most base understanding of this game, mechanics, all that stuff, he's basically built with training wheels. So you really can't mess this up no matter how you play Cid. He's that good. The sword play command is a combination of Holy Knight, Divine Knight, and even Fell Knight. As the sword, ninja sword, knight sword, and katana. But we're pretty much only going to use one weapon on him the whole game. And he can wear everything: helmet, hat, hair adornment, armor, cloth, robe, and shield. We want to maximize physical attack as all of his Sword Saint abilities scale off of it, and this gives us the perfect availability too. Cid joins the party after Battle 39, which is the Fort Besselet Sluice Gate. And he arrives rocking the Excalibur, which is one of the best weapons of the game, and he'll be able to use that for the rest of the game if you want. Here's a couple things you can do to really maximize his damage output. As you can see, I have the headband and the power garb equipped, as well as the bracer. All of those are going to give him a nice boost to his physical attack. Attack boost from the Geomancer job is going to help increase the damage of his Sword Saint abilities. And then obviously I really like the Mana Shield, Mana Font combo for him, as none of the abilities I recommend for him actually use MP, so it's really easy to just keep that shield up as you keep moving in between each turn. He hits like a truck. He can hit ranged enemies, he can hit multiple at a time, he can inflict status of elements with the attacks as well. He also can use rend abilities, which are new, you haven't seen yet up to this point, where they can break enemies' equipment, similar to a knight's rend. And the cherry on top is Shadow Blade, which you remember from Gafgarian, where he can deal damage, a lot of it, and also heal himself, which is just incredible. I think Monk's secondary abilities make an easy pairing for him. It gives him some ability to revive, as well as heal multiple targets with chakra. All of those are based on physical attack, which he'll have a lot of. So it gives him some versatility as opposed to just being a one-man army. Like I said, it's hard to mess up Cid. You could do a bunch of other things with him because his stat blocks allow for it, but this is going to be your most optimal way to play him, and really no point in playing him any other way. Make sure to bring him to any tough fights or boss battles, have fun dishing out crazy damage, and enjoy being Thunder God Cid. Up next, Meliadoul 10 Gilles, Divine Knight. Now looking at that HP and physical attack base and growth, you've got a soldier here on your hand with a movement of 4. It just kind of stinks that her Divine Knight abilities are basically the equivalent of long distance sword strikes. It's just weapon power times physical power. There's no additional modifiers, no pluses in there like the Holy Knight or Sword Saint gets. She kind of gets the worst out of the 3 with her unyielding blade abilities, but they're still helpful and useful, and she's still an awesome character. She's got an interesting equipment spread with a sword, polearm, and crossbow, as well as the knight sword. But the issue is her unyielding blade can only be used with a sword or a knight sword. For armor, she can wear a helmet, hair adornments, armor, cloth, and robe, and shield. But no hats, so she won't be able to wear the twisted headband for the extra physical attack boost. She joins the party as a guest in Battle 44, which is the Limbury Castle Undercroft, and then afterwards you can recruit her to the party. A nice standard build for her will look something like this, using a Knight Sword, a Bracer in the accessory, a secondary ability like Jump, and then protecting her health with Mana Shield. Attack boost always is going to help raise the attack power of her Unyielding Blade. Now remember, the Unyielding Blade attacks are essentially long-range sword attacks. It is just weapon power times physical power. So there's a couple additional things we can do to help bump up her damage. This is one of my favorite builds for her. You utilize dual wield with 2 Knight Swords, Power Garb in the chest piece, and Bracers for the accessory, and then you stick with Jump, Mana Shield, and Mana Font. This gives her great one-on-one damage when she's up close using those double great swords, and then it also gives her an ability to strike mid-range and rend some armor or some weapons if she needs to with her Unyielding Blade, and then she's able to do really good damage from quite a distance if you've mastered Jump or learned the top level skills in the Dragoon. Now you can see I just jumped right there and I was actually using a javelin as the weapon. This setup pays homage to her brother Islud. So you use re-equip, and let's take the javelin off now and put our Knight Sword back on. Now we have the ability to use Unyielding Blade on our next turn. Re-equip does cost a turn, so it's a little janky, and then here we go, we can use Unyielding Blade the very next turn. I don't feel like this is very optimal, but it is some fun flavor, and again, it pays homage to her brother Islud. I think she's most effective using the dual wield Knight Swords, getting up in their face and just hitting them hard, and then attacking from afar using Jump, and then in the intermediate using the Unyielding Blade. Some people, I think, focus just on using her Unyielding Blade as if she was Agrias or TG Cid, and that's just not the way I believe is the best to play Meliadoul, because you'll be doing suboptimal damage. Obviously, if you're fighting against human enemies, it helps a lot to break their weapons and armor to help reduce their max HP. Up next, Cloud Strife's Soldier. Soldier's an interesting one. Looking at its stat blocks, it kind of does what it needs to, but not really for the way that the class is set up. It's just not well optimized, but it's also not really bad either. I'll teach you how to make his default class of Soldier work best with his limit abilities that come with his job, but also I'll show you some options where he can venture out into other jobs to help really maximize that really cool abilities that he comes with. I think Cloud has some of the best looking abilities in the game. They're also pretty versatile, like Finishing Touch, for example, either cast Sown, KO, or Stop on the unit. Other ones have really nice area of effect and do decent damage. They adjusted the charge time in the Ivalice Chronicles, but it still needs to be adjusted, and we'll take care of that. Soldier only uses Sword, and in fact, the Materia Blade that he comes with, you have to use his special abilities. You can also use the Materia Blade Plus, which is amazing and custom built for Cloud. Refer back to Ramza Chapter 4 with instructions on how to get this. Soldier has a small equipment selection. You can wear the hat, hair adornment, or cloth. All the limit abilities are based on magic attacks, so we want to make sure that we prioritize equipment that boosts our magic attack. Cloud is recruited at the end of the entire side quest storyline after the events at Nalveska Temple. Again, refer to my videos regarding this. I have a guide for recruiting Cloud, and I'll link that in the description below. And here's what my Soldier Cloud would look like. Obviously, Materia Blade Plus to make sure we maximize magic attack, along with Lambent Hat and Mage Power Gloves. With clothing, there's really nothing we can wear to boost our magic attack, so the rubber suit, we talked about that early in the video to help give us a big boost to our HP. And since Limit is all about damage, I like to give him something that will supplement that. So white magic, time magic, things like that to help support the team. Swift Spell from Time Mage is really important to increase the charge time of all of his limit attacks. It's honestly one of the worst things about it is how long they take to pop, but with Swift Spell you can drastically reduce that. For his reaction, I like Shadowdory because he is good to have up front, and this helps evade physical attacks based off your bravery percentage. But if you want to have Mana Shield, you can as well and use the Mana Shield Mana Font trick. But again, I like to use him for White Mage and Time Mage, so his MP is important to me. Now you could change him to a White Mage or Time Mage and use Equip Sword, and then that way you could boost up his magic attack significantly with the equipment available, but you lose out on Swift Charge. Another option is to change him to Geomancer, so you can have a sword equipped. But I feel like Geomancy and Limit, they step on each other's toes a little bit. I have to pick one or the other. But ultimately, this gives you a very nice magic attack but you can get by with him just as a soldier. He just won't have the best based or growth stats. Shout out to Boco. I know he's a monster and not actually a job, so there's not a build I can recommend to you for Boco, but he is someone who joins the party via story means. He can be a decent little attacker as well as healer, and you can also ride him to get along the map, especially earlier in the game where you don't have as much movement. He can be really helpful. So shout out to Boco. Also shout out to Construct 8, another not a job, actually a monster class, technically all of these are. But he is actually fantastic. I love his intro scene. They chose a great voice for him, right? Reminds me a lot of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. He is a walking artillery, essentially. Dispose is amazing. You can do really good damage from across the map. It does a little bit of self-harm, and also he's pretty strong with melee attacks too. He's got a ton of health, so you can put him at the front to be like a tank for everybody, and he hits like a truck. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Worker 8. He's somebody you could actually use throughout the game. I love him. You can heal him through samurai skills or through choco heal or items, or even the next character that you get, Bylos, the Reaver, the weird little guy who joins you after the Midlight Deep. He's a great debuffer. Does like these random debuffs against the enemy that are awesome. It's just like a cocktail of danger that it gives the enemy here. He's got some pretty unique spells, like one that does damage based off the target's max HP, and he also knows this one named Revengeance.
I'm saying Jack is back.
He also has a move that's just like Chant, basically, but be careful because you can accidentally kill yourself if you have too low HP already. And most importantly, shout out to you. If you've watched it this far, you are a real one. This has been part 2 of the ultimate job guide where I've gone over all of the story characters. This took a ton of time to make. I hope you all get some great use out of this. You all filled my heart with all the kind things you said about my part 1, and I'm sorry it took so long to get part 2 out. I wanted to make sure I had as much quality as I could and took all the feedback from part 1 to heart. If you have anything that you'd like to tell me about this video, please reply in the comments, whether you do something different, whether you suggest something, or what I love is when people put their own build ideas in the comments, because I know people read through the comments and they can maybe get some help from something you've put in the comments. But thank you so much. Once again, I want to remind you, if you've made it this far and you are not a subscriber, what are you doing? Just go ahead and subscribe. You obviously like my content if you watched an hour-long video, but joking aside, if I've earned your subscription, I would appreciate that. Like the video, share it with someone who you think that this would benefit. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I really do appreciate it. All of this I make for you all. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.